Hello Cinnamon Bun, so it is 7:57 a.m. I'm having my morning coffee and I thought I would do some of this Q&A. So I'm doing this Q&A to celebrate hitting 10,000 subscribers! Yay! I know I don't seem very excited about it. I think I am excited about it and I have been, but I was hovering like kind of just below 10k for like quite a long time, or for a while. So like I've known it's coming for a while, so I think that's taken some of the like immediately visible joy out of it. But it is very exciting and cool, and just thanks for everyone being here. Like, thanks for subscribing and for sticking with me, especially when, you know, I've not been making videos as regularly as I want to. So I decided to do kind of more of a vlog style for this video, so like that just means that it's going to be able to go out quicker because I don't have to do all the hair, makeup and lighting and microphone and set up the way I normally would. I'm just kind of doing it sort of on the fly as I'm doing things around the house. What do you think of dreams as a way into characters' introspection or any other use? I honestly hate them. I think they're very quickly and easily overused, and yeah, I think they can feel pointless because ultimately what happens in a dream, like other than like what it might say about the character, doesn't have any effect on the plot. If you give a dream a function in the plot, then that's probably the way to go, personally for me. But if it is just like basically filler, then yeah, I don't think it needs to be there. That said, I have put a dream in my current novel, so maybe I am a hypocrite. What keeps you motivated to stay writing a project? I don't know, really. Like, I think I'm just really stubborn. Maybe determined? Yeah, stubbornness, like wanting to see the project finished, and probably realistically, some of it is like the sunken cost fallacy. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. Extra Credits did a brilliant video on it, and it's just the idea that like once you've invested a certain amount of time or effort or resources into something, it's really hard to quit, even though quitting actually might be the best course of action. And I feel like I've gotten to that place with both of my books. Not that that means that I should have quit them, but that like the amount of work it's taken me and the amount of learning that I've gone through, like it probably would have been quicker for me to start and finish a new book in the time it's taken me to just fix the one I'm already working on, but I'm really invested in the one I'm already working on. So I do remember a time during State of Flux where I think maybe someone asked me about it and I realised that my answer to why I still wanted to do it and why I was like, no, State of Flux is definitely going to be a book and it's definitely going to be out there, was that like I felt like some kind of obligation to try my main character to like tell her story, and I thought that was kind of cool at the time. I don't know if cool is the right word, but yeah, I'd invested so much in it that I was like, no, this is fucking happening, okay? Like I don't care what it takes, it's fucking happening. I love the quality of your videos. Can you talk about your process of writing and making them? Do you use story circles? Maybe that deserves a whole video. So I don't use plot embryos for my videos because they're not plots, they're non-fiction. In my videos I'm conveying information rather than telling a story, but I do love the idea and I do want to experiment more with the idea of using plot embryos in places other than novels and using it for non-fiction and things like that. In terms of the process of making my videos, like I try really hard to make sure that they're really high quality, like technically, like technical wise, like as far as I can. Like I don't have a lot of expensive equipment. I use my phone to film my videos. I have a Yeti mic, which is more of an expensive microphone that was actually a birthday present. And I have a couple of really cheap like lights that I use because I live in Scotland and we don't often get a lot of good sunlight for shooting. So yeah, that's like the technical, like surface level stuff. But honestly, I think part of the reason people like a lot of my videos so much is because I refuse to make videos on stuff that I just think my content isn't up to scratch. Like I only make a video on a topic, teaching a topic, if I feel like I have something genuinely of value to offer. to that conversation, to that concept, to that idea. I never make videos of tips on things that I have found online, or I've done some research and then I'm transcribing it into a video format. Like, every one of my videos is something, it's teaching things that have genuinely gotten me results in my writing. I don't know why my voice has gone all dark and weird, which is why I like to hear what you guys want in terms of what videos to make, but it's why I don't often immediately go out and make a video about the thing that people request, because if I don't have anything good or insightful or particularly interesting to say about that topic, then it's not worth it to me to make a video. I don't ever want to feel like I'm wasting your time, and so yeah, and I think that's part of why 10,000 subscribers is a real achievement, and I'm really happy with it, but in the grand scheme of YouTube, that's still quite a small channel, but that's why I love how passionate you guys are, and how dedicated some of my subscribers are, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I am very choosy about what I make a video on, and I make sure that I'm never wasting your time, or at least that's what I hope. But in terms of, I guess the ins and outs of actually making it, I always write a script, and it's not word for word, it'll be the bullet points of what I want to say. I used to read through that script to try and start to memorize it a little bit to make filming a bit more natural, but actually now what I do is I listen to my script on my phone. So on an iPhone you have accessibility options for people whose eyesight isn't great, and you can actually set it up so that you can have your iPhone read any page of the iPhone to you. And so I just load up my scripts and I have it read it to me, and that helps me sort of learn it, I guess, or get more familiar with it before I then try and say it all. And obviously I use a lot of cuts because I just do takes basically for every single sentence. So yeah, I script it, I listen to it a few times to get kind of more familiar with it, and then I set up and I shoot, and I try and shoot as many videos as I can in one day, because it takes me quite a long time to set up. Setting up for videos is the longest I ever spend on my makeup, really. I don't really spend that much time on it generally, and I have to do my hair, and then I have to set up my lights, and I have to make sure that my lights are charged because they're rechargeable batteries. So then I set up, I shoot a big long video with tons of mistakes in it, and then I edit in iMovie. What is your favourite quality of a character, specifically the main character? I don't know, I feel like I like lots of different kinds of stories, so the idea of picking one trait out of one character is really difficult, and I don't even know that there are trends across my favourite kinds of characters. I just like the characters I like, and I like really well-rounded characters, and I don't know that I can explain why necessarily. I guess one thing would be that I like kind of characters who are maybe a bit tough on the outside and squishy in the middle. That kind of always gets me. You're actually my favourite writing YouTuber, and I'm so excited to see you've gotten 10k subscribers. When did you start writing? How many words have you written so far in your lifetime? How many books have you written total? I started writing when I was 13, I guess, and I have no idea how many words I've written in my lifetime. I have no idea. And how many books have you written total? 2. So the next question is, what resources did you use to help with your depression and anxiety? I know you did CBT, but what was the program you did to learn and figure it all out? Well, first of all, I haven't figured it all out. I haven't solved depression and anxiety. I have improved a lot, and I've learned some things along the way. I did a CBT course through the NHS, through the National Health Service. So I know a lot of you guys are in the US and you guys don't have a National Health Service, but that's what I did it through. And the way that it works, at least where I live, I'm not sure how it is in the rest of the UK. In the UK, I think a lot of places you still have to go to your GP and get them to refer you to mental health services. But in my area, at least, you can actually refer yourself to mental health services, and there's basically a mental health team for the area, and they give you a consultation call, which can take a long time. I think mine between like phoning them and leaving a message with my details, basically requesting a consultation call, it was like a few months after that I actually got the call, and we had a quick chat on the phone where they asked me like stuff about my mental health and recommended this group CBT course, which is obviously run by the mental health team in my area. So it's like a little clinic, and I went there once a week for, I can't even remember how many weeks it was. It might have been 8, but it feels like it was longer than that. Yeah, and they like taught us this CBT course stuff. Oh, fuck that a wee bit. Yeah, so I know that this, like, my situation isn't necessarily very helpful advice for others who might be struggling, especially if you're not in an area or a place where things work in a very similar way at all. Yeah, I mean, if I had the money to go private and just pay for counselling for myself or like for an actual therapist, I definitely would have done that, but I just didn't have it. I still don't have it. I'm lucky that I actually managed to get help, but the resources for mental health, like the resources for the NHS in general, right now in the UK are really stretched, really thin, and that means that it can be incredibly difficult to get help with mental health. I know I have friends who, have tried to refer themselves or to access mental health services, treatments, and who've been told that they're not sick enough, that their anxiety or depression or other mental health problems or issues aren't bad enough, and then they go away and it gets really bad, and then they come back and they're like basically non-functional. And I think the way that we deal with and treat mental health is totally fucked up, but that's a whole other conversation. So that's what I did. It was a CBT course provided. Congrats on 10k. Questions, let's see. How did you get into writing in the first place, and what was your journey like? Would you say your characters are more character driven or plot driven? Looking forward to that Q&A. I've been following you for a while now, so this is awesome. Oh, thanks. So I did write kind of as a kid. Not a ton like on my own volition, but whenever we had anything to do with writing in school, like creative writing, I was like all over it, and it was like one of my favourite parts of school. And the first book I ever started, I was 12 or 13, and we had an assignment to write like a short story basically on these different prompts that they'd given us. I think it was for a test actually. I think it was like a test situation. And the prompt that I chose was just the words Amber Beach. And so I wrote about this like Romani girl sitting on a beach who had like magic was involved. It was basically a fantasy world, and she happened to be on a beach, and I guess it was kind of tropical. Then I started to kind of have some ideas for like a kind of like island and her family, and then traveling. From there I decided, like after I finished that story for the test, I was like, I'm gonna write a book out of this. And so I wrote maybe like a chapter and a half of this book called Amber Beach, and absolutely nothing happened in it because I had no idea really what plot was. And I set about like creating like the world, like doing the world building stuff, which is really fun and comparatively easy to plot, like creating like really derivative fantasy stuff. So like I remember there was like a race of like werewolf people that were like named like Dalverines, which is like one letter away from the exact same thing in Oblivion or Fable or whatever fantasy game I was playing back then. Yeah, so I never really got very far with it, but I knew that I had a knack for like describing things, I guess. Like I was really I feel like for a 12-year-old I did really well at like setting the scene and creating this interesting kind of atmosphere. But obviously I just had no idea how to like create plot, how to give characters motives and conflict and stuff. So it was just like a very pretty, kind of interesting setting in which nothing happened. And so I did a little bit of that, and then I kind of like fell away from it. And then I had an idea for a story called Girl of Ice, which was a like sci-fi retelling of Sleeping Beauty, basically, about a girl who, instead of falling into a magical sleep, was cryogenically frozen. This sounds probably really familiar now because there are kind of like a lot of like sci-fi and YA books that kind of do things like that, but at the time I was like 14 and that wasn't really something I'd come across. And I wrote like 8 chapters of that and kept them on floppy disks because that's how long ago it was. And then I lost them. Like I lost the floppy disks or they got erased or something, and I was devastated, and I just like lay on my bed and moped for a few days, and then I just kind of got on with my life and I didn't do anything with it. In 2009, a guy that I hate got in touch with me. I mean, like, we were kind of friends, we were kind of acquaintances, but he was a dick and now I hate him, but in hindsight, like, we were still kind of chummy, I guess. He got in touch with me saying, hey, have you heard about this NaNoWriMo thing? And I was like, no. And he's like, I'm gonna do it, do you want to do it? And I was like, yes. Like, I've just moved to a new city to go to university. I'm in my, like, halfway through my first semester of university. I'm gonna write a fucking book. And so I did NaNoWriMo in 2009, and because I didn't have a plan, it had already started. It was already 2 days in by the time I started. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna base it roughly off Girl of Ice because that's the last big thing that I wrote. I'm gonna bring in all this other shit that I'm interested in. So I'm gonna add graffiti, and I'm gonna add this, and I'm gonna add that. And that eventually became State of Flux. Would you say your stories are more character driven or plot driven? Character, 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 character. I love characters. They're the reason I write the story, and so all of my stuff is basically character driven, I think, I hope. Yeah, if I have a choice, then character all the way. I love seeing characters grow and change or fall and change, and yeah, without like really good characters and without them driving the story, I find it quite difficult to stay interested, I guess. So yeah. Have you ever gone the route of agents and trade publishing, or is that something you're not interested in at the moment? I have not, and that was a conscious, like, I thought long and hard about it when I was thinking about what I was going to do with State of Flux, whether I was going to submit it to places or if I was going to publish it myself, and I went back and forth, and I eventually decided to self-publish, and I did that, so State of Flux was all me, but I am planning on submitting to agents and trying to go traditionally published with North of the End. And I think it's just that I would like to explore that side of things. I also like the idea of not having to do absolutely everything myself when I have so much other shit on the go. Like, I have my reservations about traditional publishing, but then I also know the reality of self-publishing as well, and things are difficult both ways, in different ways. So yeah, so I'm going to try and go traditional. I am basically going to try and get an agent as soon as I've finished North of the End, which hopefully should be soon. And that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to be like, I want to publish traditionally for the rest of my career. I think that North of the End is probably a particularly good fit for traditional publishing, or at least a better fit than State of Flux, and maybe a better fit than other things that I want to do. So I think it makes sense to give it a go with this book. Nice going. I've learned a lot from your videos. How about a list of your favourite stories, whatever genre, and favourite storytellers? Wow, this is difficult. Yeah, so a lot of my favourite stories aren't actually books because I love media, I love games, I love TV, I love movies, so here we go. Wonder Woman comics by Gail Simone, those stories are awesome. The Gone Away World by Nick Harkaway is one of my favourite books of all time, and it's got everything you could possibly want in it, and it's amazing, and it's got this huge twist which will just blow your mind, and it's fantastic, and you should read it. And Mass Effect is probably one of my favourite stories of all time, and I think part of it is that it's executed really well and the characters are brilliant, but part of it is that it just hits that sweet spot of like themes I love to hear about and explore, which is like about AI and the natural versus synthetic
natural versus created and technology and stuff. Like that's something that I have always been interested in. Actually, in school I did an art project where that was the whole theme. It was all like different hands that were made out of like wood or like robot hands, and then doing things together. I have a lot of emotions around it, and specifically Edie, her story in Mass Effect is the one that like punches me in the heart every time, and I don't even really know why. I should probably investigate that for future stories for myself. The Bees is an amazing story by, I'm gonna put the name up because I don't remember, but it's a story from the point of view of a bee, and it's fucking amazing. Meg Cabot is one of my favourite storytellers. She wrote the Princess Diaries, and she writes tons of YA and adult romance, and she's amazing and hilarious. Spider-Man has always been one of my favourite characters in stories. I was really quite obsessed with the original movies and the comics when I was a teenager, and that was the Ultimate Spider-Man series of comics at like issue 95? I don't know, but there was like basically the first issue that I picked up had Mobius. It was like a vampire on the front because it was like a crossover with Blade. So that was my first like foray into Spider-Man comics, and I stuck with it for a while. From there, I actually had a subscription at my local comic book shop, and then when I moved for university, I never told the comic book shop owner, who was a lovely guy called Mike, that I had left and to cancel my subscription, and so he must have just kept collecting them for me, and I was so embarrassed that I've never been back. I'm really sorry, Mike. Oh, favourite stories! Oh, this is so hard. I want to just like go to my bookshelf. Horizon Zero Dawn actually is a game that I played recently that I fucking loved the story. I thought it was really, really brilliant. I just love like mysterious sci-fi stories, so I'm a total sucker for that, and Horizon Zero Dawn was amazing, especially because there was no like male gaze-y stuff in it. Like it was very like female centric, but not in a way that it was like, this is about female issues. It was just like a really fucking good sci-fi story that happened to be about women, and yeah, it was really good. I'm sure there's ones that I'm gonna kick myself about forgetting, but I can't keep answering this question forever, so let's continue.
Thank you for this and getting 10k. My question is, I have always loved writing. I've only written short stories and my plan is to write a novel, but when I sit down to do it, I start second guessing myself, doubting and putting down my dreams. I do this ever since I decided to write a novel. I have the timeline, but when I get to writing, I shut down myself. When I don't write, I feel worse, like I'm confirming I don't have it in me. So it sounds like you're just being a total perfectionist and that you're putting a ton of pressure on yourself, and I mean I can relate to this because I do it too, on making something awesome and making something great, and you're so worried that it's not going to be awesome and great that you're like, well, why bother at all? And like I said, I relate to this because I have those feelings too, but like that's not the right way to think about it at all, and really what you need is a mindset shift. And so my advice is to start doing whatever is going to help change your mind on that. So if you're talking, so like, I mean, CBT tools do apply here. You know, you could start using like affirmations, anything that's going to start changing that belief that everything's got to be perfect and it's got to be awesome. Like one thing that I'm thinking about doing a video on soon that I kind of touched on in my pep talk for Preptober, the video called Write Your Damn Novel, is the idea of finding a metaphor around showing up that just works for you. So like for me personally, so like making it about just showing up rather than about like creating something really good. So some people do that by telling themselves, so actually some musicians do that by telling themselves, I'm going to make 3 shit tracks. Some writers do that by telling themselves, I'm going to write a really crappy first draft. That's my goal right now. Just write a crappy first draft. And it's to like kind of like put crappy in there to like take the pressure off, and make that part of your goal instead of like trying to write a great draft and then failing at it. No, I tried to write a crappy draft and I fucking succeeded at it. So my personal one is about novel stops. So the idea that if you do 10 minutes, then your better writer self, your, I don't know if you want to call it a muse, is going to show up most times, but she's never going to show up if you don't go to the bus stop and wait for her. Like, she's never going to come to you, but you can go and wait for her and she'll probably show up after 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And so I made it a challenge to myself, I guess, to show up for 20 minutes. And so I made it my goal. Like, I do a 20-minute sprint of writing, and that sprint is not me trying to write good. That 20-minute sprint is me standing at the bus stop for 20 minutes to see if my amazing writer self, the version of me that's really good at this, is gonna show up. And it just takes the pressure off. It's just like, I'm just here, like, my novel is like a place where I'm going to wait for that. And while I do, I need to be working on it. And yeah, I just find it really takes the pressure off. So maybe try something like that.
I have some questions about the plot Embryo. I found it incredibly helpful for my story in so many ways, but I think my brain gets a bit hung up on the pure visual structure of the circle on the paper. For example, the fact that all 8 parts are the same size on paper doesn't necessarily mean they should all be the same length in the novel, right? And just because meeting the goddess is at the halfway mark on paper doesn't mean it has to occur halfway through the novel. I guess my question is, what are your thoughts regarding the size and positioning of the parts of the plot Embryo on paper in relation to the same in the actual novel? Congrats on 10k, and sorry for the long question. So I think you just need to, it needs to be roughly. So meeting the goddess, which is plot point 5, should be roughly in the middle. It doesn't need to be exactly in the middle, because that's like serving no one for you to do that. But and I think in general the stories are like front heavy, so like the first 3 plot points will probably be a lot longer than the last 3, because the last 3 are all kind of about wrapping it up. You just tend to do a bit less of that, or at least I personally do. I prefer to, like, you know, set things in motion and then let people like infer the rest of the ending rather than just like telling every single thing that happens, because I think that's actually wrapping it up too much and making it too neat. And then obviously if you go too far with the end of the story, then it's almost like you're starting a new story. Yeah, they should roughly fit into those proportions, but like, don't stress about it if they don't exactly. Like, it's a framework after all. Like, yeah, if you have plot point 1 and it's like 4 times the size of any other plot point. Actually, I don't know if maybe that's not a good example, because plot point 1 is where your backstory is, and that can tend to be a bit bigger. But yeah, unless it's like crazy out of whack, like, I wouldn't worry about it too much.
So what are your thoughts on the 3-act structure, and when is it best to consider subverting it for a better story? So obviously there's like a few different formulations of the 3-act structure, so I don't know which ones you've seen, I don't really know which ones I've seen, but something I did see recently, I think it was actually in a video by Lindsay Ellis, who is an amazing YouTuber and does videos about film and film theory, and yeah, they're really, really good. And she did one on 3-act structure. I think it's 3-act structure. It might have just been on structure. And the way she had laid out the 3-act structure, it's just exactly like the plot Embryo, except kind of interpreted a little bit differently, presented a little bit differently. So my understanding is that the 3-act structure, Act 2 is twice as long as Act 1 and 3. The points on it, they're really just the plot Embryo plot points. So like Act 1 would be the first quarter of the circle, Act 2 is the bottom half of the circle, so the whole like unknown realm, and Act 3 is the last quarter of the circle. And so yeah, like if 3-act structure works for you and you actually find it more useful to formulate it in that way, then like go for it. It's like a linear way of laying it out, whereas I feel like the plot Embryo, the circular way, actually helps you see the connections between different parts a lot more easily, and I think that the plot Embryo is the best way to lay it out. 4-act structures also fit within the plot Embryo. Yeah, so that's why I champion the plot Embryo so much, is that I feel like it really combines basically all the important things about story structure in one particular way, and I think that way of laying it out is the most effective way. So yeah, when is it best to consider subverting it for a better story? Like, I don't know, man. It's your story. Yeah, I've not done a lot of like subverting the plot Embryo structure myself. on purpose. So I don't really have a lot of advice. I guess the main thing is just like always have a reason that you're subverting someone. Like that's the whole like premise behind the idea of like knowing the rules before you can break them, is like if you're breaking the rules for no reason, then people are just like, what the fuck? So if you're gonna break the rules or bend them or subvert them, like have a good reason. Do it for a thematic reason. Do it for a story reason. Like make sure that there's a point to it. Otherwise, people are just gonna get pissed.
If you were able to write a superhero movie, what character would you write for? So this is a discussion that I actually had very recently with a friend of mine. I was in doing a coffee shift with my friend David. He's like super into the Marvel movies, probably more so than I am, but I am also very into them. And so we were working together, closing on a shift. And he was like, so have you seen Infinity War? And we spent 4 hours speaking about Infinity War as we were working. He asked me, I mean, specifically, like if you could write a Marvel movie, what would you write for? Which I guess is a slightly different question, but I'm just going to give you the same answer. Because at first I was like, oh God, I don't know. Like I love Spider-Man and he's always been one of my favorites, but I don't know that I would want to write him because I don't know if I'd do a very good job. And then I was like, it's got to be Black Widow, right? Like, it's got to be. The fact that she hasn't had a movie yet is a fucking disgrace, Marvel. And yeah, we were talking about it. I just saw Atomic Blonde recently, which is that spy movie with Charlize Theron, and I was like, oh my fuck, could it please be like that? Like some of the fight scenes in that are just like brutal and incredible. And I think that's kind of the vibe that I want to go for. And it wouldn't be like spy school, it wouldn't be a flashback. I'd want it to happen in the present day. I would want it to be, yeah, a good spy movie. So I'd want the villain to be someone from Black Widow's past, kind of catching up with her, kind of similar to Tony in the third Iron Man movie, how he kind of created that villain. Obviously Black Widow's done some fucked up shit at points, and so the idea of that coming to catch up with her would be good. And I'd like the villain to be very smart in that their plan can't be thwarted by any of the other big heroes. So Cap can't punch his way out of it, Thor can't electrocute their way out of it, so it needs to utilize Black Widow's skills specifically, obviously, and I'd love to see more of her like interrogation, like kind of mind games and stuff, because that was really cool. But I would like it to be like another like Cap Widow like buddy movie. I fucking love them together. But yeah, so having Cap be like not taking orders from her, but like her taking the lead instead, because this particular situation, like his skills aren't as useful. I would write Black Widow. There is also, of course, the chat like we were talking about, how Atomic Blonde is a very adult movie, and that's how we would love to do it. I'd love to do it like this really like she's incredible, not because she has powers, but because she just keeps fucking getting back up again. Like the Marvel movies have to be like family friendly, so I don't know how that would work, but that would be my dream.
So I'm gonna go and do my hair now. Let's go. This next one is serious, guys. If you had to choose between writing and coffee and never have the other ever again, which would you choose? So this is kind of difficult for me because this is still heating up, so I guess I can chat while it is. Because writing and coffee have both become jobs for me, and they've both become things that I've hated at times. I guess it depends what kind of writing I have to give up. Like if I have to give up novel writing, I'd be gutted, but if I could keep writing in other ways, then I would do that because coffee is important. If it had to be all writing all together, fuck, I don't know. Maybe? I don't know, maybe there's a universe in which I'm happy just like making videos about stuff that isn't writing, and nah, I don't think that's the case. I don't know, but like I can't give up coffee, even though I've had to at points. It's like a big part of my life now as well, especially because I work in coffee and I have for a long time, and I know so much about it now, that like giving it up now would be... Do I have to give up coffee altogether? Or can I just give up caffeine? Because decaf technology has come a long way in the last few years, guys. Like there's some really great decaf out there now. That's as far as I'm willing to go on that question.
I've heard when writing a story that I shouldn't write how I speak, so how should I write? I don't know. I've never heard that before. Like, it depends obviously on the voice of your narrator or your character who's narrating. Obviously you want to get in with their voice, but I think it's fine to write how you speak. Just write how you write. Don't worry about it too much. I've never heard that before. I don't think you should worry about it.
10,000, congrats. My question, do you do a full scene-by-scene outline before writing, as I believe you once advocated? Yes. Yes, of course I do. I know like all of my stuff is about outlining and story building and not the actual like writing the sentences part. And that's because I feel like that's where I've actually learned all the good stuff. Yeah, the difference is that I no longer use the process in the How to Build a Story series or the How to Build a Novel book. I use the plot embryo to create the plot, and then I turn that into an outline. I create a plot embryo for however long that takes, and sometimes it takes quite a long time because you are creating a whole story, even if it is on one page, and sometimes stories are difficult, and sometimes you don't realise it's actually two stories in one, and that's why it's so confusing and stuff like that. So yeah, I create a plot embryo, and that's basically like the biggest picture, like bird's eye view of the story that you're ever going to get is the plot embryo. And some of those plot points probably aren't very well defined. It'll be like, this is like emotionally the beats that need to happen, or this is the tone and stuff, but like the actual details of what exactly happens like isn't there. So I'd have to do some brainstorming to then figure out how that plot point breaks down into various scenes. And you can basically do that for the whole plot embryo, break it down into the individual scenes and then put those on cards or write it out in a whole like page outline. And I advocate using your outline, like actually look at it every time you do a scene, because there's no point in putting all that work into it if you're not actually going to use it.
Congrats, you absolutely deserve it, thank you. My question, do you find that writing helps with your anxiety? In what ways? Or conversely, are there ever times where it triggers anxiety for you? What would your advice be for that kind of situation? Thank you so much for your videos and all you do. Oh, thanks. To be honest, writing has never really been all that connected to my anxiety. I still have some kind of leftover symptoms of anxiety that pop up time to time, but I don't really consider myself an anxious person anymore because I don't have panic attacks or anything anymore, really. Yeah, my anxiety was always centered around work, shift work, which was like really stressful and kind of high pressure, and things like being on the bus, which was like traveling to work. Like, I mean, it's not that I don't get stressed about writing, because I do, and I'm kind of like, oh my god, why have I not finished this book yet? And I do kind of like compare my process to other faster writers and like kind of just want to die a wee bit. But I mean, as always, I remind myself like all the shit I've learned during this long process is going to make the next book much, much faster. And the reason it's taken so long is because I've basically written the same book 3 times and learned different things along the way. So unfortunately, I don't really have much advice for that situation if writing is connected with anxiety for you, other than just the stuff that I talk about in general with anxiety, like looking at changing your mindset and behaviour and like how to kind of treat your physical symptoms and stuff. And there will be lots more of that in my mental health video series, Depression and Anxiety 101, which is all about cognitive behavioural therapy. I know that I have like kind of paused that series for a while, but the rest of it definitely is coming. I'm actually in the process of maybe securing a sponsor for it, which would mean it could come out a lot faster because I'd have the time for it. But yeah, so I'd look out for that, I guess. But I'm really sorry I don't have anything specific to advise on anxiety around writing. I've been watching your videos for a while now and really appreciate the writing advice that you provide for us aspiring writers. Don't call yourself an aspiring writer unless you've never written anything before. If you are writing something at the moment, or you have, then you are a writer. My question is this: how did you know when State of Flux was actually ready? Like, how did you know when to stop working on the rough draft part of it and move on to editing and make it ready for publication? I don't know if State of Flux is a very good example for that question, because I wrote the first draft in NaNoWriMo in 2009, and it basically wasn't a first draft, it was a series of slightly connected, interesting vignettes which were a total mess when you put them together. And then I did the How to Revise Your Novel course by Holly Lyle, which was really useful. I still use some of it, but not a lot of it anymore. And I think the plot embryo actually is more useful than a lot of the stuff I learned in that course. But yeah, so I went through this really intensive course with State of Flux, and when I came out the other side of that, I was like, right, okay, it's a lot better than it was, but actually it's still not. It's not there. But honestly, I don't know, like, I think you just have to be done with it at some point. Like, State of Flux took me 4 years, maybe up to 5 years. And so by the time I was coming to the end of it, I was like, I'm so fucking done with this book. Like, I'm really proud of it, and I still am, but like the idea, like people have asked me if I plan on doing a sequel, and I just can't. Like, it was just like such a painful process for long parts of that like, I'm just not gonna do it. Like, not anytime soon, at least. I don't know, I've heard people say that like, it's finished when you're not making it any better, you're just making it different. I think that's probably a good thing to do, but like, honestly, you just have to decide. Like, I know a lot of writers who have books that are out already, like published by traditional publishers or by themselves, and are like, I'd still change things if I could, but at some point you've got to stop. Like, because at some point you've got to decide you're finished and then move on to the next thing, because that's what a writer does. And this is something actually that Holly Lyle spoke about in that course. It was like, if you don't finish things, you're not a writer. Like, it's about creating a body of work rather than rewriting the same book for the rest of your life. And that has to be your motivation to move on, I guess.
So how is it like to handle both being on YouTube and being a writer? What kind of time management goes into doing both well? I don't know that I necessarily do both well, unfortunately. I mean, okay, that's not the case, because I think that my work in writing and my work on YouTube is of quality, but I'm really not happy with the pace of it. Like, I feel like I would love to be making videos much more consistently. I'd love to be putting out weekly videos, and I just don't really understand how people manage it. Like, it's something that I've been wanting to get around to more, but not really actually doing yet, is the idea of like, when I have things planned in my bullet journal, and organized, and then it gets to the time to do that, and my brain is like, no thank you, I'd rather not. And so like, kind of like trying to work on that resistance that I'm getting for like what feels like no reason. Like, I just don't want to do that. Yeah, kind of reasoning with myself and being like, look, you're being resistant to this, but it's only going to take you half an hour to have a shower and wash your hair and blah blah blah. Or look, you're being resistant to this, but actually when you do it, registering as self-employed actually doesn't take that long, and just, it's important, so you should do it.
How are you feeling? How does it feel to have 10,000 subscribers, and how is your next book coming? I don't know. Like, I can't really, it's really hard to conceive of 10,000 people watching my stuff. I don't even really know what 10,000 people looks like in a stadium or anything. So I don't know. I think, to be honest, like, after doing YouTube for a while, you kind of get a little bit, I think you get a bit cynical and a bit, not desensitized, that's not the right word. Stuff that I, like, back when I started doing YouTube, 10,000 subscribers was like unthinkable to me. I don't know, it's when you achieve anything and then you realize that like, oh wow, I've achieved something, but I'm still the same person though, and I still kind of feel the same. I don't know. So when I'm really happy and I'm trying to like consciously like let myself feel that happiness and feel that sense of achievement, but I'm one of those people that I'm very good at moving the goalposts for myself and just like moving on to the next thing and be like, well, why don't you have 20,000 subscribers? So yeah, I'm trying. How's your next book coming? Okay. So I just spent a day working on it yesterday, and I finished a scene in chapter 7 where my favourite character arrives. I'm doing the last revision basically of my own accord, and it's going to betas, and I will make changes based on beta feedback, and then it's going to agents. And I just feel like I'm rewriting every single page. And I think that is because my last draft was all about like creating the structure and like like reordering things, like plugging in scenes where they were missing and stuff. Like it was very structurally heavy, and so I decided that I was going to draft in a way that was like not really about the prose, it was just about getting the story down. And so that means that I don't really like a lot of the prose, which means I basically score out most words on the page and then rewrite it on the back so that it sounds nicer. So I guess I'm achieving quite a lot, but it feels like very slow going, and I wish that I could just have a few pages where I just make minor changes, but there have been very few pages where I just make minor changes. So I'm getting there. I'm chugging along. I'm really ready to be done with it. But yeah, I've got my first beta interviews for chapter 3 this morning, in fact, in 20 minutes. And this will be the first time anyone has ever read chapter 3. No one has ever read past the end of chapter 2 the entire time that I've been writing this book, which is a long fucking time. That's coming up for 5 years, I think, as well. So I'm really excited about that because
I fucked it a wee bit. Okay, so I need to get changed now. So see you in a minute. I'm dressed. Am I like physically capable of like packing my bag to leave while doing more questions? The light's probably gonna get weird as I walk around, guys, but like, as long as you can still hear me, that's the important part. It's a vlog style thing, it doesn't need to look amazing. When you start a new project and have many ideas, how do you decide which ones to use? Or are you trying to use them in the same project? Which ones fit together? That's the question, really. Like, if you look at the story that you're trying to tell and the stuff that you're trying to explore, like which ideas fit well into that and which ones are you like, no, that doesn't. It's a judgment call. So this is me trying to figure out which chapters I need to bring with me to write today. So yes, okay, so that's the next one to type up. That's the one I'm working on.
Can you tell us how you schedule out your days? I'm interested to see how you balance your day job, writing, and YouTube writing consultation stuff. How do you fit it all in, and what does a day in your life look like? I don't know that I am very good at fitting it in. So this is kind of a weird question because I feel like people assume that I'm a lot more productive than I actually am. But maybe I am, I don't know. And I've had a really unpredictable, changeable schedule for like 3 years now, ever since I went from full-time in coffee down to part-time, and I've been like making it up with different stuff, and I've had like a million jobs since then, most of them temporary. Basically what I do is I plan on a weekly and monthly basis, and I look at the non-negotiables. So if I'm doing coffee shifts, if I'm doing social media work, if I've got client work, those go in my calendar as soon as I know that they are there even. And then I look at the rest of the week and I'm like, okay, well, how much time do I have after that? Some weeks I'm working 5 shifts and there's not really much time for anything else. So I'd maybe do 1 day of like business stuff and writing or YouTube. And then I have a day off and that's my week. And yeah, I don't really progress very far on my stuff. And then other weeks I have 1 shift or 1 piece of work for a client or something, and then I spend the whole rest of the time doing my own stuff. But honestly, that's why like there is no like 1 day in my life really, because some days I get up at 6:30 and I'm in for 8 o'clock and I'm making coffee all day and I don't do anything else. I come home, I watch a movie, I read a book, I play a game, and I like try and like feel my feet again and that's my day. And some days I am writing, and so I take my writing stuff out with me and I go to a library or a cafe. I have like my favourite sort of haunts, and I work for a few hours and then I pick up and I go and get lunch, or I go and get tea somewhere else, or I go and get a cake, and that gives me a break in walking, and then I go and like do some more work. Some days I'm just shooting videos all day, and I don't necessarily think I do a great job of it, to be honest. Like basically it's like heavily about prioritization. I basically need to look at all my various projects and like ask, what's the most important thing right now? So like after I finished my funding period from Creative Scotland, I was like, I literally don't have a job anymore. I have no way to pay the bills. So like the idea of spending time doing more writing when I could be job hunting or looking for work was like, that's kind of a luxury I can't afford right now. Like it is a luxury to be able to have the time to write, because if you are starting out, like, and especially with a book, you don't get paid for that book until you've already finished it. So like all that time is like upfront basically, is like working for free. So yeah, so writing had to take a back seat for a while I like secured some work for myself. And I've done that now. I mean, it's still temporary, but yeah, so now that I've got like fairly consistent coffee shifts and like consultation work and stuff, I can focus more on writing.
So the next question is, what advice would you give to an autistic person who has trouble understanding and reaching people? Now, I'm going to assume that you mean in relation to writing, because I am not autistic, and so I can't really give you a general life advice on that, obviously. But in terms of when it comes to writing, I think you should write for yourself. I think you should write about the things that make you happy or interested, the things that you're interested in. I think you should write characters that are like you. I don't think that you should worry quite as much about relating to people who aren't autistic, who are neurotypical. I think the world needs more stories by autistic people, for autistic people, which are true to them and true to you. So write what makes you happy, write the stories that you want to write, and they will connect with someone. Okay, I'm just about to head out and try and dig up some breakfast. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to do some more of these questions kind of out and on the go, but realistically, I'm very self-conscious about filming in public. I really don't like it, especially on the street, if people can hear what I'm saying and stuff. So if I get a private moment at points, then I will try and do some more.
I actually took my tripod out with me, which actually kind of doubles as like a selfie stick, so I could actually film outside. But in town and stuff, I'm just too self-conscious. Like, even after a few years of making videos, and even after 10,000 subscribers, I still can't shoot videos out in public. I'm just too embarrassed. So yeah, I took it out and then I just like came back home with it. So here we are. And lastly, what colour do you dye your hair and how do you get it looking so good? I've always admired it. Thank you. I actually am always aiming for teal with my hair, but it ends up fading to this kind of moss colour. And I use crazy colour dye, and I found out from a video by Angelina ALB, like Alban Wonderland, who's a YouTuber that I love, that you can basically mix like those vegetable dye hair dyes like paint, so you can mix your own colours and stuff. So for a long time I was using half peacock blue, half pine green, and then I realised that actually I need to go more blue and more blue because there's like yellow tone in my hair, and that's why it keeps coming out more green than I want. So I'm actually using a dye called Sapphire, which is a new one, mixing that with peacock blue, and I think the next time I dye it I'm going to do just Sapphire, so it should hopefully look more blue for longer. Yeah, I mean, how do I get it looking so good? I just effort, like, and I use straighteners and I curl it or I straighten it, or I, like, after I wash it, I like pleat it into little pigtails so that it dries wavy, and then I like use the straighteners to tidy it up after. But yeah, it's just good old-fashioned effort. Okay, I really need to go because it's 5 minutes until my beta interview starts. So yeah, this has been fun. If you want, you can keep sending me questions, I guess. Like, I might do another Q&A soon. But I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you again for 10,000 subscribers. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed. If you are subscribed to this and you're watching this right now, thank you, Cinnamon Bun. And I look forward to speaking to you soon. Okay, bye.